everyone. Super excited to welcome you to the OfferZen Culture webinar on employee engagement in a remote world, new HR operations that are here to stay. I'm Brendan, and I head up the expansion at OfferZen based out of Amsterdam. Before we jump in, to make sure that you get the most out of tonight's conversation, there are some things to keep in mind. There are 3 tabs on the right of your screen: chat, QA, and polls. You can post questions throughout the session in the Q&A tab. You can also upvote the questions you like, increasing the likelihood of them being asked. And the chat area is for your comments, ideas, or random thoughts on tonight's topic. We'll also be posting a few polls during the conversation, and then you can cast your vote on the poll tab. And finally, we're an enormous fan of swag. Swag is a thing that you need to learn about OfferZen, and we'll be sending some of you a swag pack just for participating tonight. And to qualify, simply join the conversation by posting a question or voting in the poll, as just mentioned, or adding a comment in the chat. It's that easy, and we'll be sure to select a few of you to send you that swag pack later. Then on OfferZen. OfferZen is South Africa's largest online talent marketplace and developer community. Around 4 years old, and it's a reverse talent marketplace where you can get exclusive access to thousands of vetted software developers, product designers, product managers, and data scientists across South Africa, and now also the Netherlands. We've recently launched in the Netherlands and are now working with eCulture tonight to bring you tonight's conversation. And that's one of the things that we like to do. We create unique experience by adding value to the tech community, which is super important to us. We really believe in the power of community to drive connections and therefore help grow the local tech ecosystem. So thanks a lot for joining us tonight and make that community a reality. I will not be moderating tonight's conversation. That will be one of the founders of eCulture, Charlotte, a female entrepreneurial role model from Rotterdam, just like her sister. They've been doing an amazing job, and she'll be hosting tonight. So over to you, Charlotte.
Well, thanks for the nice intro, Brendan. Hi everyone. My name is Charlotte. I'm one of the founders of eCulture, like Brendan mentioned. We are an HR tech startup based in Rotterdam. And what we do is we offer a team composition technology. And that means that we help scaling companies in building the right team composition they need to be able to scale. So that means that the people in the team represent the right skill sets, personality traits, etc. Of course, with the vision that I really do believe that people is the most powerful resource you have in your company, and that eventually your team is the make or break factor of your company. So we should never underestimate that. And of course, a very important aspect of having a successful team is also how to keep people engaged once they enter the company. And that's, of course, what this webinar is all about tonight, in a remote setting, of course, because that's what the current situation has caused, unfortunately. So tonight we are going to have a chat about employee engagement in a remote world, how to deal with a situation in which you need to keep your team engaged and motivated if you're not able to see each other. We have 2 amazing guest speakers that will share their experiences with this topic. The first of them is Agustin, he's Senior Director HR Tech and Operations at King. And we have Bailey, who's Head of Organisational Design and Performance at OfferZen. And of course, I could give an introduction of you guys, but maybe you are better in doing it yourself. So maybe Bailey, we can start with you.
Cool, thanks. Excited to be here. I am heading up organizational design and performance at OfferZen, and I guess the main focus is how to really build an organization that can scale, that can grow globally. Now we've expanded into Amsterdam, basically at the start of lockdown. So moving into distributed teams and high growth scale up mode. So my role here is to really look at making sure we've got a solid foundation in order to do that. So very excited on how to kind of face some of these really difficult challenges exacerbated by the pandemic. But yeah, moving into high growth, which is really exciting.
Cool, thanks. And after the introduction of Agustin, I'm also very curious how you actually experienced this period yourself. But maybe Agustin, you can give a quick introduction first.
Sure. Name is Agustin Bianchi. I'm based in Barcelona. I head the HR technology and HR operations team at King. And now it's transitioning into a wider role where King is part of a bigger group of companies, Activision, Blizzard, and King, all working on the entertainment industry and video games. My role it's basically about enabling employees, managers to perform their people cycles in the most seamless way possible. Looking for automation, for self-service where possible, and for all of those sometimes tedious HR cycles to be as smooth and easy to do as possible. Yeah, that's me.
Cool, thanks. And Agustin, maybe we can start with you then. How were the last 6 months, 7 months? I think it's already 7 actually. How were those months for you, working fully remotely?
Yeah, well, we already had kind of a flexible working, a policy where we, depending on the team, but mainly the ones that did not require some special technology or piece of equipment in the office could have some remote working or working from home. So, and King was born, as a digital company already. So we had that advantage that I know a lot of other companies didn't. So we were, my team already remote. I'm based in Barcelona, but part of my team is in Barcelona, some in Stockholm, some in London. So we were kind of used to it. But it is an absolute truth that those office interactions, those brainstorming sessions, and all that value that you can get from being face to face is completely lost. So for me professionally, it was a concern about how the team will cope and how the productivity will be impacted. Personally, has been tough because at least my preference is the balance, is to be able to go to the office when needed and required, and to stay at home when needed and required. And to not be able to do that, it's clearly a liability, at least for me. So yeah, I
can imagine. How was that for you, Bailey?
Yes, incredibly, I guess, stressful in general. For everyone, but OfferZen, the pivot was quite real. We're roughly around 76 people. We'd just taken on the Amsterdam. We'd had a merger with TriCatch and expanded into Amsterdam, and so a lot of the plans and how you think you're going to do that and go and support different teams totally shifted. We have a very high touch, in-person culture, so I think the move was quite far from our norm. We had a remote day once a week, so we were semi-prepared. And I think being a digital company and very focused on documentation, transparency, and continuity certainly set us up to ease into remote and transition. So we were very lucky in that way. But the what you lose, as Agustin says, is so real. And I think for myself, during the pandemic, certainly riding on adrenaline, maybe whiskey at times, but it's really around, that, I guess, that sense of like responsibility and drive to create clarity. So being in the lead in a people up space is really around how do we just kind of set shorter term goals and create some clarity. So that was the real focus. I guess that's what really pushed us through. But now that things are settling, like really urging people to take some time off and regroup, because it has been emotionally pretty taxing for everyone.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I need to say it. I think it's really impressive. We were here with 15 people when it started. And I thought that 15 people was already a challenge to communicate well and keep people engaged and motivated. So you were with around 100 then. Agustin, for you, it was more than 10,000 employees in all different countries. What was the biggest challenge you faced a really practical one on day one?
I guess that there are many challenges. I believe the scariest one is when people start creating silos, and to prevent silos in time of uncertainty, it's critical. So when people are scared and when things like this happen, people tend to retreat, right, to do their own thing and just try to get by, and that is in my eyes the death of an organization. We promote collaboration, we promote ideas and bouncing ideas with each other. We promote agile, fast working and fast decisions, failing fast, and then taking the right course back again, and all of those things that you can easily do while you were in the office or meeting people, was gone. So preventing silos, I believe, during these times, it's critical. It's one of the biggest challenges. There are more. Another big concern that we had, given the size of organization, is the mental health, concern. It's, a lot of people are experiencing these times in different ways. Some are coping better, some aren't. Some need a lot more support. So there is. It is not different to anything you should be doing in a team or in an organization before, but it's become a lot more relevant. To be able to, you as a manager, have that trusting relationship with your team when your team talks to you about their feelings and they open up and they express when they are unsure, uncertain, insecure, it's critical. And but it's also a challenge for many organizations and many teams and many managers. So I would highlight those two.
Yeah. Because of course the COVID crisis has caused a lot of stress, anxiety, insecurity within companies, and of course then also within teams and individuals. How did you both try to measure or monitor the level of stress, anxiety among your employees in order to respond to that?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think I think everything went into kind of like crisis management mode, and some of the, I'd love to say to you, we had a pulse check and a tool and this in place. That wasn't the case. But I think where we helped mitigate some of it was around, as I said before, it was like being proactive around creating transparency and clarity, short, sharp bursts of goals, higher frequency and cadence of communication, creating like a lot more feedback loops, having like the tools that where you kind of instilled, let's have those one-on-one conversations, let's equip people with asking the right questions, noting that the world was changing so much, and that even if people weren't affected at work at OfferZen, their partners maybe. So trying to bring awareness around what kind of questions to ask to help draw out what was really happening, what people were feeling. I think during the actual lockdown in South Africa, we were all kind of really banding together, and it was go, go, go. And it was survival for like most of, the feeling of survival. The real crux for me around measuring and managing stress and well-being is now. So things are relaxing. People have endured and sustained kind of a level of speed and survival mode. It's how we kind of manage this transition into self-awareness, recognizing signs of burnout. So these are things we're pivoting towards now. I think the one side practically is just trying to create awareness around what that looks like, because it creeps in and everyone's been enduring it for a long time. So we're launching a how to build connection guide, how to a burnout guide for leaders, really trying to reframe how you can lead in a remote space to pick up these cues, which you would ordinarily see if you were in office. So I think now it wasn't so much in crisis, there were key things to create guiding stars and something to connect to. It's actually now that vision period and when you take your foot off the gas to kind of resume what really happens. So yeah, we're pretty concerned about it now and how to manage it and equip leaders to manage it.
Yeah.
And if I may jump to something that Bailey just said, she said many times, keep it simple, or keep the focus and step by step. At least we discover it's no news, but it's very important to reinforce the why, not just the what needs to be done, and just have task-oriented goals and measure performance that way, but also measure it through first communicate the vision and constantly be reminding people, why are we doing this? Why is this important? How this, even though difficult, might help the organization, might help your team, might help your personal development. That is critical. But also, the incentive needs to be, needs to be more. It's not enough to reward just performance goals and reward, hey, you completed this task, you're rewarded, but also encourage developmental goals and reward people developing and feeling like they are adding value to their careers, and that package where you don't only focus on the task and you also focus on the person, helps a lot with all of that anxiety. So that is also critical.
Yeah. Did it also for the both of you, raise the urgency for tooling? Because I can imagine that, I think if we need to mention one positive thing for HR when looking back at this COVID crisis, it's the fact that tooling becomes more relevant and maybe more urgent, or these people start understanding why you actually need it and why it's not a nice to have, but actually a need to have. Is it something that you are experiencing as well?
Yes, I can jump in here. Yes, absolutely. It was very easy before to just get up from your desk, go to someone in HR or somewhere else and ask for help and ask for hand-holding and not really understand what you were supposed to do as an employee or as a manager and get help or get someone to do it for you. You could do it as an email, but in the office, when you have that physical presence, it was more effective. Now it's not that easy, and people have lots to do still. So the tools are critical, but how those tools are focused on the user experience and the employee manager experience, it's critical, because you may have tools that are completely unintuitive, that are not fit for purpose, and then in the end just makes things even harder. So the tools are evolving, and there are many tools that can help in a situation like this. To something that Bailey just said, they didn't have a pulse survey or a tool to kind of test how people were feeling and get some immediate feedback. Luckily, we had that and we used it, and the results that we got back were very interesting. When we thought that the pandemic was more or less over and we started to create these back to the office plans, now those are in a drawer somewhere, people say, we asked what would be the most important thing for them in returning to the office, and they were very mixed results. Someone said, let's just get less people in the office, and some other people said, let's just get more spaced desks. Some people said, let's just get temperature checks. When you first get into the office, or anyone with higher temperature cannot get in. Some people were even saying, let's just all get tested every week. Many different interesting results. But then we also ask about whether they want to come back to the office. And the results were mainly 30%, or 25%, yes, please get me back to the office. I cannot stand to be at home anymore. And those were mainly parents. The other 25 were, no, we don't want to go back to the office. I'm fine where I am, just keep working remotely. But most people just wanted to have the flexibility. So I think that's I believe it would be one of the most positive outcomes of this situation. How changes and ways of thinking that were very challenging before for many companies are now becoming a reality and are a lot more feasible to senior leadership.
Yeah, definitely. How is that? How is it for you, Bailey? Is there, for instance, a tool that you now use or a process that you follow that you didn't even consider before they started?
I guess there's a couple. So we had a very strong kind of Slack culture and using Slack and Google Drive and really documenting things, and how we structured the drive is very deliberate. But I think what's really surfaced for me, and I'll comment on the type of tools we started using, but it's actually around like how deliberately or what you want the tools to do. Because I think we kind of defaulted in the office to like trying tools, or this one wanted to use it for something. And what's happened, what I found is become really important is how we kind of want to drive usage of certain tools. So, and share that more widely. And so we're now trying to drive, looking at like a tool directory, an area of responsibility, and who owns that tool? What's it for? What's it used for? Because I think the classification of, do we want this tool to be for productivity, or do we want it to be for engagement? What type of communication is important using which tool? I think we start to confuse Slack with synchronous versus asynchronous and how you want people to engage. And so I think in a remote world, setting like guidelines and that expectation of, or maybe it's just like really understanding that the mindset shift is around what you want to achieve and then using the tool in the right way to achieve it. And before, I think the default is, well, this is a great tool to integrate, and haven't been as deliberate about using it to its full functionality or in equipping everyone on how to use it. So I think that was a big thing from a tooling perspective that's come out, like actually setting that structure in place. And then I think from an HR operations, recognizing how integral automated HR workflows actually are when you are distributed or remote, and how we start to scale systems. And like Agustin mentioned, it's about employee experience, and the focus on integration of tools, maximizing usage, how people engage with them is a real focus of mine now. So that automation and integrating HR workflows will really help us scale, and it'll improve the employee experience tenfold, I guess. Like really, I really believe in it. Little kind of hacks and tools that we've implemented that we didn't have before is Donut. So that's on Slack, which is super cool. Just setting up kind of trying to replicate those moments of interaction and engagement. Miro we're using so widely, and it's so fantastic. Donut is a tool that integrates with Slack, where it sets up random coffee chats, as well as random kind of little prompts for getting to know each other or learning more about each other. So that's been really cool. And that's, trying to break down those silos, get you to interact with people across teams or more widely. And then I guess more around just Miro and certain tools which were used in pockets but not across the org, which now everyone's kind of adopting.
Yeah. What are your learnings from breaking down those silos? Because what I experienced, for instance, here, and like I mentioned, we are a really small company. We only have 3 different teams, so communicating should be very simple in this situation. But of course, there is a first for everything, so also fully remote. Is how to make sure that if you have a sales team or an engineering team or a support team, how to make sure that people keep having a conversation with each other. If everything is on Slack, or it's not like you're grabbing a coffee and you're having a chat at the coffee machine and accidentally you are picking up a conversation from another team, which gives you more perspective on, hey, they are working on this. Maybe it's important for me to know this, to align that with my own work, for instance. How did you try to keep those communications flows streaming between the different teams and departments? Maybe, Agustin, for you, with 10,000 people over different continents.
Yeah, and
that might be a challenge.
It depends on, I guess it's depending on the size of the organization, you can tackle that in different ways. But for an organization like ours, we need to be a lot more forceful, if you want to call it like that. It needs to be part of their goals. It cannot be something that it's just a conversation, a recommendation. Do that. Just if you feel like it, try to talk to this guy or this other team to see what they are doing, see if anything that they are doing would make sense for us or we can benefit from it. It cannot work like that. It's not scalable, right? So it needs to be part of a system. It needs to be part of a goal and collaboration. I keep going about collaboration. Collaboration needs to be a key value and a measure for performance in your team. And the tools are critical. And one thing that Bailey was just saying that I wanted to comment on is she mentioned about the HR workflows, and I was thinking about all these organizations that have some organizations do work with, have an HR tech team and have more technical people in HR. Some organizations work directly with IT, and IT has a lot more responsibility over those HR systems. But the reality is that sometimes there are conflicting priorities, and in a time like this, if I think when we have to move at light speed to adapt our processes and our systems and our workflows to this situation, if we had to rely on other departments, on other team in the scale of our organization, we wouldn't have made it. It wouldn't have been successful if we didn't have an HR team. So, I'm kind of I'm trying to evangelize people about this topic, but it's very important, of course, depending on the size of your organization, to invest in having technical people, HR tech people in the function. It is critical. It helps you, look at things with an HR lens. When with no disrespect to the IT people, when you sit in IT, you have a much more technical. This is a task. This is a functionality. If it works, it works, and the user experience, it's not that well considered. The HR tech people have a different lens and a different exposure to what HR means and what matters. So that is critical. Collaboration, it's key, and the way we encourage people to talk to each other is through goals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually interesting, Bailey, because you mentioned that you are now working on a lot of new HR workflows.
Yes.
Can you provide us with an example of a project that you're working on, and also why it's especially now so relevant that you started working on this?
Yeah, go ahead, Bailey.
I think it's so. If you want to scale and not have, the one is to have try to start removing highly administrative tasks that delay turnaround time from the HR team or create bottlenecks, where they can be automated and create a really seamless employee experience. So I think that's my focus. And now that people are remote, and kind of waiting on this backlog is it's not scalable, and it doesn't feel like it creates the environment. It also doesn't create a lot of autonomy to drive a lot of what employees want at the time, or leaders. So I think it just became quite real for me. We're still at the size where it's manageable, but I do think it's if I shift my focus, and I concur with Agustin, if I shift my focus on how do I want to grow the team when we're thinking of global distributed teams and expanding, I want the people ops team to be able to be a source of innovation and drive employee experience. And so thinking about those workflows has come up even more so, that I see the reliance on kind of more manual intervention within a people ops space. So I think that the key is around understanding what systems we have and how you create that source of truth and use those to their full functionality. So looking at the tools that we have at OfferZen and what employee experience or what that kind of system, holistic kind of ecosystem is for employees, and how we want to try and build on that. So onboarding is a great example. What can we automate to create that experience prior that doesn't require all our intervention? So yeah, I think onboarding is going to be one of the areas that I really tackle on how do we adapt this, that it's the flow is quite seamless from when you kind of accept to, now.
Yeah, I was going to mention exactly that onboarding. I think it's the perfect example. We used to, get people in the office, you give them the tour, introduce them to people, all of those things that are very, are great. You can't do anymore, but you still need to onboard people. You still need to get them to know the company, to get to know their colleagues, other departments, and you need to enable that through technology. So that is the one big shift that all companies will probably kind of have to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and
it also helps you scale and get, and you might know this quite well. We could talk about more AI in your space, but it helps you start or positions you to get into the space to track data in a people up space using analytics. So if you don't shift in towards a more technologically savvy environment in people ups, you lose that ability to track and use data down the line. And so I'm sure for both of you, that's definitely something I'm sure you use, but you have to be quite deliberate about it if it's not something that's really part of your roadmap. And you're going to get there. So I think that's also a reason why.
And just one last thing, I think it's worth mentioning to your question, Charlotte. How do you measure collaboration? We're not doing this currently. I would love to be doing this, but there is this concept of it's called ONA, Organizational Network Analysis, and all of this data that it's floating around from all people's interactions, everyday interactions on Slack, on Outlook, on anything, that's so valuable. And if measured and reported in the right way, without revealing any confidential information, just aggregated information on how people interact with each other, could deliver such interesting results and then have then so many interesting initiatives to promote collaboration. And it will also give you so many good tools to deliver change effectively. Through this, if you could actually, have all the aggregated data of all the meetings, all the Slack conversations, all the emails that float around, you can identify key influencers. You can identify, which teams are working best, are delivering the better results. What do they do? Who do they talk to? Who do they interact with? And use all of that information to transform your org. So that is, I know that a lot of companies, not lots, some companies are doing it, but there's still a lot more to do. And I would that's something I'm planning to do when I have the green light and the time in our organization. But it's that is the future about how to measure collaboration and effectiveness.
Yeah, definitely. I think HR analytics is something that not a lot of people were talking about a few years ago, and all of a sudden it became a really important topic because I think that people start to see how it can actually help you instead of causing more overhead. Yeah. And so I hear things like communication is key, keep it simple, a high frequency, make it clear, communicate your vision and your mission very clearly. Data, start worrying about data, implement the right tools to keep people engaged, motivated, to let people communicate with each other. Are there things reflecting on the last 7 months now of which you think like, hey, if we could do it all over again, this is something that we would do definitely different that time?
I can give you one. We work or we hire from all over the world, right? We hire from all over the world and we relocate people to our offices. Of course, that was impossible. That is impossible right now. At least it doesn't work. It's not sustainable. It's not something that we can do. So the pool is smaller. But by doing that, we had to concentrate and look a lot deeper in more local environments and different places that we haven't looked before. So I think that there was a lot of opportunity for instead of looking, looking for talent globally, but always in the same places, and instead of expanding the pool you're fishing in locally, regionally, but also removing, looking very closely at biases that you might have. So it goes a bit with diversity and inclusion, and with it's a trending topic right now. But what I would do different, compared to what we were doing before, and then how we have to shift through the pandemic, is that the sourcing you do to find the right talent and the right candidates, it's probably not enough anywhere, and there's a lot more you can do to find the talent locally, regionally, wherever. But try to look somewhere else than the usual places, the usual universities, the usual job boards. Try to expand that, and you will be amazed on how much talent you can find.
Yeah, and maybe more focus on potential rather than track record only.
Yes.
Cool. How about you, Bailey?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. I think that there's certainly things I would shift, but it probably comes to kind of lessons I'm learning now on mostly around preparing leaders for some of the outcomes of remote work that we didn't anticipate out the gates because there just wasn't actually time to. And that kind of preparation is, it's going to be a long transition into a new way of leading and picking up what isolation feels like. How do you play to different types of preferences and motivations within teams? How do you recognize your own motivation waning or feeling isolated? So I think a lot of that focus, we were incredibly focused on how do we create engagement and focus for the organization and driving performance in this time that was really difficult. But with a real expectation on leaders to just kind of, help the teams, but not really being as cognizant from the outset that this was going to be such a new world for all of us to lead in. So I would definitely want to be more prepared myself in order to prepare them for some of the things that we're starting to notice around people being completely remote for this amount of time.
Yeah.
And one comment on that, I was just thinking of something. Another lesson that we learned is that, we used to have, like I said, some remote teams and some people on site, and usually meetings where, with few people, 4 or 5 people around the table in the same office, and then some people on the screen remote. And suddenly everyone became remote. And those people that used to be in the office, that used to, maybe talk at the same time, not allowing the people in the screens to participate as much as because the interaction was a lot more difficult, found themselves in a situation where they had to all listen to each other, they had to mute, they had to pause, they had to pay attention, even though a lot of people, including myself, sometimes multitask and are in meetings doing something else. But I think that one positive outcome of everyone going remote is that when people get back to the office and and they have meetings and they have still some remote people participating in those meetings, hopefully they become a lot more respectful of those people remote, listen a lot more, wait their turns to speak instead of speaking all over the place and not allowing people to hear. So I think it's going to create a better meeting and philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I have a few questions from the people joining this webinar, so I wanted to ask a few of them to you. Hopefully, I know for which one the question was. I have a question from Anneke who's asking, did you find that agile tools helped during remote working? And I think, Agustin, that one is for you.
They definitely do. So if you are not agile, regardless of you being remote or not remote, agile tools always work. I find them very useful. The fact that allows you to work in sprints and make fast decisions and correct the path immediately when you in a week or two. It's critical, and I believe it's the way every company should work where possible. So they definitely do. If companies started using them once they went on lockdown, I'm sure that they found the value, and I'm pretty sure they will not let them go once they go back to the office. So yes.
Yeah. Cool. I have another question from.
Can I just comment on that, Charlotte?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also we underestimate how valuable agile tools are for all teams, and I think there's this preconceived idea around the type of work you have to do to use certain agile tools, and I'm hoping this shifts some of the balance. So many teams can benefit. I think some of the role is to equip and train and get people to understand how you can be masters of many of these tools, no matter what function. And that's been quite a nice shift that I've seen, where many teams, no matter the function, are adopting either agile or project management tools to help them with streamlining work processes and flows. And that's been really useful, and it creates transparency and everyone to collaborate. So these are all great tools and hacks in terms of collaboration on where you include people, how you give them visibility or assign them as a contributor. And that starts to drive a different way of working.
And you don't even need the tools. The truth is that if you understand the agile methodology, you can just use spreadsheets if you have someone who can drive it properly. The tools, of course, help because there's less work to do, but tools are not a must. You can do agile without the actual tools.
Yeah, absolutely. I got an interesting one from Emina as well, and if I'm interpreting the question right, I think the question is, of course, a lot of organizations are changing a lot of things these times. I do believe, by the way, that this is a perfect time to start thinking about your current process and innovating your company. But of course, people can also get a little bit tired of constant changes, and a lot of things are already changing for a lot of people, also privately, of course. How do you measure whether people are still okay with the level of changes that you're actually executing in the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to measure change fatigue, or when they're ready, if they're still okay with with more change coming. I think that's difficult to measure. I think going back to kind of key principles around how do you want to bring about change in the right way? How do you monitor and evaluate what you anticipated the change to do, and whether that's working? I think if you can create, especially in this time, I guess the focus area for us is how do we create as much clarity around decisions we can make right now. So it's really around creating kind of a guiding star, or that North Star, or that clear clarity around what principle we're not prepared to trade off here, to give those pockets of kind of certainty. Mm-hmm. So I think you can have an expectation of resilience and adaptability if you give people something to attach to, and that sense of kind of, we're moving to that. There is a guiding light, something aspirational that we can attach to, and there's clarity around that, and that's not going to shift. Moving the pieces around brings about a lot less fatigue. You can see the pathway we're getting there. There might be some shifts along the way. So I guess my default is to say, what kind of clarity can we create around remote work, around our mindset and what we're thinking of within remote? The building blocks on like how we're going to reconfigure the office, or those sorts of things are neither here nor there when you say to people, this is the framework that you're working within. So I think following that, you can evaluate, was that change successful? How are people feeling? What is morale like? How do we kind of implement those surveys or feedback loops? And I think there's multiple ways to do that. I don't think you can measure exactly the change fatigue, but you have to know, is there burnout? What's morale like? And have we successfully implemented what we set out to achieve? And that comes with lots of context and constant touch points along that change management journey.
Yeah,
I agree with that totally. I would just add, usually when there is that much change, is because you changed before, you apply certain patches that didn't solve the root cause of the problem of the change, and then you have to fix it again. So it's really important that when you embark in a change journey, you're fixing the actual root cause of whatever you're trying to change and fix, and also that you don't apply changes in silos. And maybe you have something that doesn't work in your organization or in your team. You need to find out if that is a problem also somewhere else, and you need to make sure that whatever you change you go into, it's not wasted effort and you have to do it twice or again somewhere else, because that was a problem for them as well. So try to go big whenever you go into a change program. Try to go as big as you can. Try to start from scratch, or make sure that you identify the root cause so those changes are enduring in time, and harmonize, and try to streamline and try to simplify whatever change you make. Don't make it more cumbersome, more complex, more approvals, or more processes, or more steps. Try to simplify. Try to always make it smaller, and try to use accountability and trust as the lens you're looking to do that change program through. So you can you have professionals. All people, everyone that works with you are professionals. They can be they should be trusted. They can should be doing their job. So do you need all those steps? Do you need all those controls and checks? Do you need all of that, or can you get rid of some and make it simpler? And then measure how that goes. Measure if that has an impact on your data, on your processes, and then you can make a correct assessment. The other thing I would say is that right now, during these COVID times, we are constantly monitoring how much time of people takes. We compare how much time of people took at this point in time in 2019 compared to 2020, 60% less. So people are taking less time off. What? Because they cannot travel. They don't know what's going to happen. They are just at home. So they say, why don't I just work? That's causing burnout.
Yeah.
So encouraging people to take their time off, to even if they have to stay at home, even if it's not what they want, pushing us as hard as you can so they do take that time. It's critical and helps with that change fatigue.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
Sorry, Charlotte, I was just thinking that I think as HR professionals, there's also, I guess, a responsibility to also prioritize, and it's about noting like what you want to change and how much of it and what impact you expect. And I think we often fall into a track where we don't quite quantify our own impact on initiatives. It's like people, and it's supposed to be great for everyone, but I think there is a lot around having foresight and prioritization in terms of what that impact is, anticipating it, thinking a lot of those steps through, and then prioritizing when those changes are the best to implement. I think maybe that's also something a bit more practical, is building out your roadmap, so you have some foresight into like what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree on that. Another question from Anneke, and by the way, for everyone who's listening, there is a tab on the right of your screen, which is called questions. If you do have any questions, you can put them in there. Anneke is asking to the both of you: have you found any fun ways to do online team building? Interesting one.
Yeah, I guess it depends. It depends the time in the week, the time in the month. It all depends. Basically, sometimes you put a time building activity in, and you need to make sure that people understand it's optional, that they don't have to join, that it's just if they don't have anything to do. If during that team building activity you can share a glass of wine, in my case, that's even better. But usually when you do some kind of competition, when you when you don't only you can do it related to work, you can do something related to work, or you can just do something completely unrelated that doesn't have anything to do with your day-to-day activities, and kind of make sure that it's short, that it's optional, that it's dynamic. About the question, have I found a way? No, I haven't. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's fun, sometimes people are just, hey, don't want to, I'm just joining because I feel like I have to, and I constantly look at people's faces and I say, hey, it's fine, you can leave, just don't do it. But it needs to be, leaders needs to be there, they need to be promoting it, they need to be championing it, they need to be aware and reading people's body languages, and just give them the opportunity to be open, and but it's a tough one, especially these days. I haven't found a specific one, no.
How about you, Bailey?
So I think maybe some of the key, so we don't necessarily run like team building as in like got the one team function together to run a team building, but we become trying to be really proactive around creating connection and opportunity for collaboration. So it kind of leads back to your question around how do you break down those silos. And so we've planned out a kind of quarterly calendar now of a series of different types of events. And I think what this ties into the collaboration question. And I think it also ties, it is around kind of that creativity and connection. So trying to do things that bring people out of just that constant online feeling. And so what we did was we looked at like what types of interactions we want to promote, and some of it was full team, like org level. So we're running team events for everyone. And I guess obviously we're still small enough to have that sort of thing. But really cool ones that came up for us is we had a magician, which was lots of fun and really just wow, it was cool. You know, like I think when you see a whole bunch of people like gasping at magic tricks, it was awesome. So that was a fun one and really engaging. We ran it's like hint hunt, like treasure hunt exercise. So trying to look at how you create those breakaway rooms, those smaller teams, those types of interactions. We found that to be really positive. And from a measurement and understanding kind of engagement, we're using the events as a dipstick into like, are people attending? We always ask for feedback after the event. So those are good good tools on how do we get that type of feedback. So there's the fun side, the team events, which we found have been really cool. So those have been great. And then different things internally. So using a show and tell to bring people together to look and ask questions and engage. So our product team is doing show and tells weekly now. And then different kind of, we have a what the fuck lunch, which is basically an interesting topic that happens within the organization. So it's around bringing people together to ask questions, to engage, to surface thinking, to create that kind of team building and connectivity. So I think when you're thinking about my advice or how I'm doing it is around collaboration and team building is to split it at different levels. So I'm trying to think of like individuals versus teams versus cross-functional teams versus the org, and pinning virtual events to those or ways of interacting to the different type of interaction. And that seems to be helping to create better engagement for that specific outcome. So yeah, the sillier the better, I think.
Yeah, it just made me remember something, Bailey, that we did that actually was quite fun. We used this tool called Menti. You know, you can go into this website menti.com, which allows you to create a virtual room where people can log in with their phones or their laptops, and you can post questions and get immediate results. So, I will be sharing the screen, and I will be posting a question there, and people will be immediately answering. They can, you can make a multiple choice. You can make it, free text, And if you create a fun quiz with questions that are related to the company or related to something else, and you get people, engaged, answering those questions, and you don't put in much rules, you just let them fly and write whatever they want or answer whatever they want, and you make some silly questions with silly answers, it becomes quite fun, and you just start commenting. So using that kind of tool that gives you immediate feedback, it's quite engaging and it works quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got some valuable tips for my own team building right now, so thanks. There are a lot more questions, but unfortunately we need to go to the last one. But I think it's a really interesting one from Sergey. Considering the changes in the HR process due to remote work, what are the skills that you will need more now as an HR professional?
Cool. Yeah, I mean, there's so much on like new kind of roles, and I think HR is always in this position where you're starting to, we're starting to get fancier with different types of roles. But I mean, we ran a remote survey with our dev community recently, and I think the stat was around 91% of developers are going to choose remote work, and the way that you engage and you create that that collaboration and experience. And we saw from the insights that came out of this report is that the reliance or the enjoyment with using tooling is helping all of that. So it's helping productivity, it's helping with more intentional interactions. So definitely from our developer community, that's what they're going for. And I think from an HR skill set, this idea of employee experience and applying technology and an understanding of how you build that employee experience is going to be so important. So highly analytical, more systems orientated skill sets, and more experience design. So maybe around a more product focus types of skills is really going to aid HR teams going forward. I think it is around building a system, a service design, a product that's going to equip you for scaling, and like, because the remote certainly here to stay.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Bailey. I would say no. You still are gonna have those strategic senior HR people that are gonna be partnering with the business. With an organization like we have those people embedded with each one of their teams and our HR partners, in their business, in their teams. But then everything is moving towards, my HR operations team. It's becoming more and more an HR projects team, a process improvement team, and process design team, and are very much tasks to find efficiencies everywhere they can and remove any manual process that they still have and find solutions and partner with the tech team. So operations and tech partnering constantly to improve that experience, to remove manual work, to enable managers and employees to do things by themselves. And because that work still needs to happen, the relationship with all the government requirements are still there for each country. All the HR lifecycle transactions for employees still need to happen. Performance management, talent management, compensation management, all of those things still need to happen. But they can happen in a way that managers feel that autonomy, feel that independence, feel like it's easy, that they understand it. So HR operations is moving away from doing tickets and hand-holding managers through everything towards an HR process improvement team.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I think that HR, made the largest shift in terms of how people perceive that function group from overhead administrative tasks to HR is really the department where you need tech to innovate your company and making it more efficient. So it's actually really to get the positive outcome out of COVID, that's a really positive thing to experience. So that's happening in our industry. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So Bailey and Agustin, I really want to thank you for all of your insights. I hope you enjoyed being here as well. And I am going to ask Brendan to come back on stage for a second because I think that he's going to wrap it up.
Yes, I am.
There he is.
Thanks a lot, guys. That was a super insightful conversation. Also really cool that we're live from 4 cities: Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Cape Town, and Barcelona. Not the worst cities in the world, to be honest. Before I announce the swag winners, 2 more things. Bailey, you just mentioned a great report that we made at OfferZen about how developers feel working from home. I know enormous amounts of effort went into that report, and we're keen to share it with the attendees ahead of making it public. So be sure to watch your inbox for that email so you can get your hands on that report. And then if you enjoyed today's webinar, we'll be hosting another one on the 17th of September about leveling up tech hiring. Advice from software makers, and that is a conversation with Arjen de Ruiter, who's the VP Engineering at SendCloud, which is Europe's #1 shipping tool for online stores. So 2 things to keep an eye out for. And then the swag winners, Pascal Fruling, Anja Kitt, J. Lou, and Francia Solarzano. And now if you then would like swag the next time, join on the 17th of November. Thanks a lot, guys, for all your insight. It was a great conversation. And to everyone that attended, have a great evening. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thanks. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.